LinkedIn Live. It's called Leaders Live. So that's what we do. We host these entrepreneurs, these founders, and I urge you to connect with me on LinkedIn, Charlie Stevens with a PH, and you get updates when these are coming out. But it's an easy way for you to listen to these founders, these VCs who are providing funding, and I'm asking them questions on what type of businesses they're looking for. Then you could easily reach out to them and say, hey, I saw you on Charlie's show. I thought this was interesting. I do this, X, Y, Z, warm introductions, so it's helpful. Without further ado, let's get into a little what Jimmy's doing. Jimmy is a serial entrepreneur. Jimmy started 10 companies in his lifetime. But before we get into Entre, which we're here at an Entre event, give us a little context of you started entrepreneurship right out of college. Yeah. These 10 companies. Kind of walk us through that journey, where you started and what you were doing.
So I went to school to be a civil engineer. I love building stuff, and I said, I'm going to go to school and be a civil engineer. I didn't get into Polytechnic, so I went to a community, it's like a CUNY, and I said, I'm going to go there for 2 years, get my grades up, go there. I took a bunch of classes. I got bumped out of a class. I ended up having to pick another class. 2 weeks in, there's not much classes left. It was pre-calculus or small business, and I didn't want to take pre-calculus.
Nobody wants to do that.
So I took the small business class, and I just was like asking questions, and the professor was like, okay, please put your hand down, let somebody else ask questions. I was so fascinated by business, because I grew up middle class. I thought you had to be rich and smart to start a business or be an entrepreneur. I never thought about being an entrepreneur. No one in my community was an entrepreneur, so I said, why would I be an entrepreneur? So anyway, I joined a program through the professor. He actually referred me to SIFE, Students in Free Enterprise. It was a club of young entrepreneurs that built business plans and pitched them in front of judges, VCs, and investors. This is early 2000s, so it wasn't like coined cool, and we pitched in front of, we actually came up with an idea of a job platform for college students in 2002. And we pitched it, and we went up against Harvard, and we won. And I was like, whoa, this is amazing. Like, how is this possible? Anyway, long story short, I started meeting other people, started having conversations, started my first company, which was, I'm not going to go into all of them, but To Be Exclusive, which was an online platform for like online concierge. So if you want to go out and you wanted like a limo, a restaurant, Broadway show, we would buy the extra inventory and then resell it as like an experience. And this was like 2004, so it was like before the internet really took off. And it crashed and burned. We lost a ton of money. No business plan, like no idea what we were doing.
Sounds fun.
I remember it was like depressing, like really, really depressing. But anyway, so I started a bunch of companies. Many of them failed, but every time I took away, I learned something. I was like, okay, don't make that mistake again. Although I made the same mistakes multiple times because I was thick-headed and I wouldn't listen. So anyway, so now we segue into the end, till now. And I own 3 companies. One's a real estate. Oh, okay.
I'm running the show.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
We're not there yet.
Okay.
You said you learned multiple things. You made
Correct.
multiple mistakes.
Correct.
Talk about some of the things that you learned that stuck with you, that helped you grow this business today.
Control. So I would put my trust into other partners, like partners of mine. One of the businesses I didn't even have equity in. And for a year, I was like, hey, put me on the business, no problem. We were splitting the profits, but I wasn't on the business. A year later, I said, hey, you know what? I'm done. I'm going to walk away. The bank account had money in it. And I said, can I get half the money? And he said, oh, we're leaving. You're not on the business. You're not really owed this money. So these are lessons learned. Number one, trusting the wrong people. Because I was so excited. I was like, I'm going to do this. I want to do this business. And this is going to work out. We're going to make money. But sometimes you have to be responsible and you have to ask the question of, is everything written out, and is there a full understanding of how this business is going to work?
Is that putting together contracts with your co-founders, or is that?
It could be just a one-sheet deal memo, like, you're going to do this, I'm going to do this, and 90% of the time when you do that, it's like, whoa, hold on a second. Yeah, this thing, I don't know if I was going to do it. Well, you said you were going to do this, and I said I was going to do this. And you kind of have to go through that, and it's painful, especially if you're partnering with siblings. Partner my brother, love my brother, worst co-founder ever. Worst like non-existent. He's just like, calls me every quarter, like, hey, do I have a check coming? I'm like, are you kidding me? You don't even, like, no, you don't have a check coming. Well, you do, but like, I'm gonna wait, I'm gonna give it to you 2 weeks later, you know? That's, I say stuff like that, but what am I gonna do? You know, he's your sibling, you gonna fight with them?
What about mentors? I mean, you had 10 companies. I'm sure you had some good mentors along the way. What did you learn from some of your best mentors? Again, that sticks with you, helps you grow businesses today.
So being an entrepreneur,
And who were those mentors?
Yeah. So the mentor, my first mentor was Fedor Bonucci. He was in the entertainment business where I was. I produced a lot of events. And he taught me about risk, right? Like, here's the reward, like you can make 10x. The risk was 2x. He's like, that's a good scenario. When you're risking 10, you can make 10x, but you're risking 10x, that's a bad scenario, right? Because it's 1 for 1. And he taught me how to look at things on the worst case scenario, even though we're optimistic, we're cheerleaders, entrepreneurs. We're gonna do this, it's gonna be great. And then a year in, you're like in debt, and you're like scared, and you know, you're having panic attacks like every other day. But what happened was, he taught me that you're gonna go through that, it's okay, but what's the risk and what's the reward? And if you're gonna do it 100%. That's what he taught me. My other mentor, Mark Advent, he was like a casino entrepreneur. He opened up 2 casinos in Las Vegas and Macau, and he's just like hugely successful. And I would email him, and he would respond at like 3 in the morning, and he'd be in Asia, and I'd be like, wow, I can't believe he's like a, what's it called, email-holic? Like somebody that just emails all the time and responds to everybody, like all the time. And he taught me about connectivity, make sure you're always available for people. And a deal is a deal based on how you make it. It doesn't have to be black and white. There's all different types of ways to make a deal, and it depends on what is needed to make the deal work. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's, get into the details, but if somebody says no, doesn't mean it's no, it just means that that deal doesn't work for them. Maybe there's a better deal, maybe there's another option. There's always 3 to 5 options that you can do, and it's up to you to figure out the deal for them.
Right, understand, communicate with them,
Right.
figure out the opportunity.
Right.
Keep in mind, we'll do a little Q&A, a couple questions at the end too, and then we'll get back to networking. But let's talk about Entre right now, the business, event service group, good people here. We got these events 2-3 times a week, a month or so.
Yeah, 2-3 times. Yeah, we're in 10 cities. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about, you know, how you built out Entre, and how you know what exactly it is.
So, can I talk about how it happened?
Sure.
Okay, so Entre, 2 years ago, I produce events, I do lifestyle events, and I was like, I want to do entrepreneur events. Like, I go to them, and I'm like, they're not that great. Like, people go and they like complain all the time that they didn't get to network. I was like, you know, what if we could build really good events? And I went online and I found 3 entrepreneur events online on Eventbrite, and I emailed all 3 like organizers. One of them was Michael, who's now my partner. We got on the phone, and I have like this entrepreneur like spiel that I do, that it's like people can't, like I ramble on about entrepreneurship, I love it, blah, 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 and people are like, all right, I can't listen to this guy anymore, at barbecues they walk away, right? And Michael pitched me the same spiel. I was like, this is strange. He was talking more than I was, and I was like, okay, there's either it's strange or there's something here. So we kept talking, and he was telling me about Entre, and I said, hey, let's do some events together. 6 months later, we started doing events, they started growing, and he's like, do you want to build Entre with me? And I was like, okay. I was like, I can come on, run the events, and build a network. So we started with panels, we started with fireside interviews, and the content we were creating was number 1. Number 2, for everyone to connect and network, like, productively, not just, hi, I'm Bob, hi, I'm Maria, blah, 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 and then it goes nowhere. It's like, what are you doing? You're an entrepreneur, let's talk. If we can make a good setting and a good atmosphere, things will happen, right? Just like we were talking about your event, right? Yeah. Things happen, and that's all we want to do. So we started with New York, we started with Philly, then with Pittsburgh, and then it just took off. We're in Miami now, we're in DC, and we just kept building and building, expanding, and fine-tuning the method of how we did it, and which we can talk about. And now we're in 10 cities, and we have entrepreneurs all over. The whole goal of Entre is to find people that are scared of being entrepreneurs, or find entrepreneurs that are looking for certain people and put them together. That's all we want to do, and build other things. But entrepreneurship, thousands of times scared. I wish somebody would tell me it's okay. Like, you're going to fail. It's going to happen.
Right.
It's part of. It's like a stock market. Like, the ticker goes up, but if you look at the big swings, then you really see what's happening in the market. Nobody told me that. Again, I didn't have a successful uncle, entrepreneur, or anybody, so I just did the best I could, and it took me longer to get to where I am than maybe someone else that's reading books or has a great network.
Right, and as we continue to gear up for 2020, I'm helping out with that too. We're going to have some really good panels, we're going to do some live shows.
Absolutely.
We're going to bring in some really good influencers to talk to, but that opens up the Q&A, that opens up you to talk to them in real life, which is helpful. But also, again, the community, as long as you guys connect, it's probably the most important. You talked about growing into other cities and the method of that. How did you, growing is one of the toughest parts of any business. How did you use some of the method growing into other cities?
So let's say we went, first it's the market, is there a market there, right? Are there other entrepreneurs, is there a demand to have that? That's the first step in figuring out which city to go to. We identified that. Then we find the location, then we queue up speakers